so nice to be able to do live concerts again. I know I've just played this concert to the previous audience. It's been a really weird time. You're really the sort of second, well, you're actually the third audience. The second audience I had over the last 6 months was just a few minutes ago. You're the third audience. In August, I was in Cardiff to do a recording session, and there were about 10 postgraduates here practicing, and so I did a little concert for them. But it's really so nice that we can do some live music again, and I was really delighted that the orchestra was able to rehearse this weekend, even though in a distance format, if you like. So we're sort of gradually getting back to some sort of normal. And I know this is weird. This is going to be quite a short program, because I know it's not very pleasant sitting with masks on this sort of thing. But basically, 5 pieces. The first 2 pieces are actually based on the same sort of Baroque descending ground bass. So the Beethoven variations, what you have to listen to is the bass line. Which is also the same bass line as the Liszt piece, the second one based in Bach. Typical sort of bass line for lamentation and Baroque music, Purcell's "When I Am Laid in Earth" from Dido and Aeneas. She's saying when she's dying, she's talking about her death. That has that same bass line as well. So Beethoven was looking back to the Baroque era, looking back to Handel and Bach when he wrote these variations, and he produced a sort of Baroque like chaton. So what you have to listen to is the bass line, which is going in the Beethoven. Tune at the beginning, which is, and then that comes back near the end. When you hear it coming back in a sort of mysterious way, you know you're nearly at the end of the piece. It's the final sequence. Back to as a tune, but this time in a major key. And Beethoven changes the bass line slightly here, because it starts the same way, but then it goes, because that works better in a major key. So it's basically like a set of Baroque variations. Beethoven wrote about 1805 when he was being very influenced by Bach and Handel. It's also, those of you who play I can't recognize anybody here with mask, but those of you who play the piano, it has virtually every aspect of Beethoven's piano technique is in this piece. It's like a little compendium of Beethoven piano technique. So if you can play this, you can play virtually anything else Beethoven wrote. I find it quite an exciting piece. It's quite rather sort of, it alternates between the aggressive and the mysterious. And then when you hear the same bass line in the Liszt, it's a piece of mourning and lamentation. So it lasts about sort of 9 or 10 minutes. And when you hear it in the major key, that's about the midpoint of the piece. So Beethoven, 32 variations in C minor. piano technique, just one after the other. So instead of practicing really boring journey studies or something like that, if you practice this, you will have a piece you can play in public, and also it goes through every bit of really Beethoven's piano world, if you like. Now, think of the chromatic bass again. And if we move to F, this is the bass of the new piece, the Liszt piece. This was written in 1859, and it was written in a very personal crisis. Liszt's son Daniel had died in his late teens of tuberculosis in Berlin, and of course his father and the mother, everybody was devastated. And Liszt wrote this piece really in mourning for his son. He based the opening on Bach's cantata, church cantata, which is the words Weinen, klagen, sorgen, zagen, weeping, wailing, worrying, hesitating. It's basically a mourning cantata. Bach also used the same theme in the opening for the crucifixion movement of his B minor Mass. So basically Liszt started improvising on this. Sort of 16 bars is just Bach, is basically a transcription of the chorus, and then gradually it becomes more different. He adds his own variations, and towards the end there's a sort of climax and a crisis, a sort of collapse, where the bass line stops descending, just sticks on F and goes. I'm guessing here, but I think that represents the sort of, his son's death, basically. Why do I think that? Because about a few years later, his eldest daughter, Blondine, died in childbirth. And he returned to this piece and expanded it massively. It became 2-3 times the length. And added a second sequence of variations with another climax and collapse. That I think probably refers to his daughter's death. And the longer piece, the later piece, has a conclusion that is a quote from the Lutheran chorale, "What God does is for the best, was Gott tut, das ist wohlgetan." Yeah. So this was a way of trying to understand his children's death, basically. And the only child he had left, Cosima, eventually became Wagner's wife. She eventually married Wagner. So this is a very personal piece. It starts off with Bach and then becomes personal. It lasts about 5 or 6 minutes, and it's a sort of, he called it a prelude, but it's also a prelude to the later piece. But the later piece I think would be too big for this program. But it's the same. The reason I've included it is it's the same bass line as the Beethoven, but done in a very, very different way, and a very sort of very personal way. And it ends with just an open fifth, a sort of hollow ending. So this prelude on Weinen, klagen. pieces as a program. The first two are I say the first one is sort of a mixture of aggressive and sort of mysterious. That is a sort of mourning lament. The one in the middle, the Schubert, is really a sort of, voice from heaven, a sort of angelic song, should sound like sort of consolation, which is why I put it in the middle of the program. And then the last two pieces are much more upbeat, or sort of virtuoso pieces, because I don't want everybody to go home feeling utterly miserable. So this is also, this Schubert Impromptu, a very famous piece, is also an arrangement by Liszt. He rewrote the second half so that it became more romantic. You'll hear the spread chords in the second half that sound more like Liszt and Schubert. I'm also playing it in G flat major, which is the original key. The Liszt's edition was published in G major because the publisher thought that G flat was too difficult a key for anybody to play in. Six flats, for goodness sake. And that it would sell more copies if it was in G major. But there's no reason not to play it in G flat, so it's in the original key of G flat. So it's basically a sort of angelic melody with a slightly stormy middle section. And so I've designed the program, as I say, it's quite short, to go from sort of, from defiance to lament to consolation, and then to sort of, vivaciousness and something a bit happier towards the end. So a little sort of emotional journey. At least that's the idea. I hope it works. Schubert D flat Impromptu in the Liszt arrangement with sort of added big chords. big spread chorus come. It just comes back in the rhythm in exactly the same way as you heard it the first time. So that version is more romanticized, but also more varied. So that was the sort of consolation bit, the bit with the big tune. So now finally, to conclude, sort of two sort of virtuoso pieces, the more Liszt arrangements, if you like. The one now is the spinning song from Wagner's Flying Dutchman, and that's early Wagner, so it sort of sounds a bit like Italian or French opera. There's some slightly more advanced, more chromatic harmonies added in by Liszt, because he wrote this arrangement about 20 years after the opera itself was written. It's a spinning chorus, so all the girls are spinning, spinning wheel, and you can hear the spinning wheel is going up like this. So the accompaniment, what is this sort of spinning accompaniment? And they sing about, it's a story about a cursed sailor who's been cursed to sail the world until he can find a woman that will be faithful to him unto death, as we all do, okay? So he's doing that, and the motive of this accursed seaman, this cursed Dutchman, you can hear this in the middle and the end of the piece, because while the girls are singing their song about they want their sailor boyfriends to come back, Senta, who's the main heroine of the piece, is dreaming of this ghostly sailor, this ghostly seaman, and she's dreaming in this sort of very... So her mind is a million miles away. So you can hear that in the music. And Liszt adds a little coda ending, which is almost impressionistic, where you move your hands up and down the keyboard and sort of almost like little snowdrops up into the top of the keyboard. That was definitely added by Liszt. That is in the original opera as a sort of little magical ending. So, a spinning song from Wagner's Flying Dutchman in Liszt's arrangement. really basically since I was your age. I remember playing at a concert in Edinburgh, and I thought, oh, I've just recorded it. It was one of the things I recorded in August, and I thought to myself, oh, I've played it before, I've done it in concert before, it'd be really easy. And so I started relearning it, and it took me ages. It took me about 2 weeks to learn it properly, because I'd forgotten just how tricky it was with all these fingers. You know, one finger nearly catches the other with the hand. So it humbled me and stopped me being so sort of arrogant, because I thought, oh, it'll take me 2 or 3 days to relearn this. But in fact, it took 2 weeks, and even then, I spent a long time practicing it because it's just so tricky. And it's one of these really awkward things that, I mean, you're all musicians, so it's different because you can hear certain things. But basically, if you get it right, it just sounds very jolly, but I don't think it sounds particularly difficult. But if you get it wrong, it just sounds crap. So you don't get anything in the middle. You know, you either don't get enough credit for the practice, or it just sounds terrible. But I think it's a great fun piece. It's a really nice bit. Now that I can play it properly again, I think I'll do it. I'll do it a few more times. But I always remember that my teacher, Ronald Stevenson, who came to one of the concerts I did in Edinburgh with it, I remember he said to me when I played that first, he said, you know, I thought your right hand was really good, but your left hand wasn't. I couldn't hear the spinning, you know, I couldn't hear the da-da-da all the time. And he said, listen to Paderewski's recording, and you can always hear, you know, what's going on the left hand. So that was why I was paying so much attention to you hearing the spinning bit in the left hand, because I remember Ronald telling me that years ago. Of course, he was quite right. I was being lazy, you know, so that's why. Anyway, last piece, again, Liszt Wagner. This is basically this is a transcription or a fantasy on, a sort of variations fantasy on a song and aria from Act 1 of Wagner's Mastersingers, the Mastersingers of Nuremberg. And the main character, Walter, a knight called Walter, is trying to get into the Mastersingers Guild, trying to get into membership without actually obeying the rules, without going through the conventional way. And they ask him how he learned to sing in the first place, and he said, well, he had no proper teacher. He just learned to sing from books of poetry, from listening to the birds in the trees, from listening to the sound of the forest, and this was how he learned to sing. And of course they're very skeptical, and he gets rejected. He doesn't get in because he's got talent, but he's untrained. And the main tune, and then we hear me at the beginning. Gradually becomes more and more complex. It's really Liszt that adds all these different variations and arrangements to it until it builds up to this really rather massive romantic climax, and ends sort of very loudly. So I thought last 2 pieces will be uplifting. So there's the rather jolly spinning song, and now this very sort of wildly romantic song from Mastersingers in Liszt's arrangement. It lasts about 8 minutes or so. And ends with a sort of big virtuosic climax. I've always sort of really loved this piece. I love the sort of intricate sequencing and voicing. So I hope you enjoy it too. I'm stillen here by the quiet fireside is the words. You know, I learned to sing by reading poetry by the quiet fireside in the still of winter is what he sings. So I'm stillen here. In the Liszt transcription from Wagner's Mastersingers. for the people who can't be here, and also for the students who are abroad. We have lots of students abroad, China, Far East, even America, who for this would be at 2 o'clock in the morning if they're going to do this live streaming. So we're streaming that as well. So hello to everybody in the rest of the world. Thank you so much for coming. I'm so glad we're getting back to live music, that you're at least a little bit able to play and sing again, and that you're able to listen to me playing, and that we're getting slowly, maybe, back to something like normal. Thank you